Hey guys, tonight we travel back, way back, to the heart of an empire that built roads, conquered continents, and somehow managed to stay mostly clean. That's right, we're heading into ancient Rome. Not the marble statues or fancy forums. No, we're stepping into something more personal. We're stepping into Roman hygiene. Imagine waking up on the second floor of a crowded insula, a Roman apartment block. You're surrounded by creaking beams, thin plaster walls, and about 14 other people crammed into 2 rooms. The air is warm, stale, and laced with something between sweat and last night's boiled cabbage. You don't have your own bathroom. You don't have soap. And running water? That's a luxury for the rich, or for the guy who lives right above the aqueduct. This morning, you stink. Everyone stinks. And that's normal. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it for you? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push off your itchy wool blanket and sit up on a straw mattress that's doing its best impression of a sack of rocks. The floor beneath you is dusty, always. You slept in your tunic, because why not? Pajamas haven't been invented yet. There's a bucket in the corner. Let's not discuss what's in it. Your first priority? Bathing. Except you can't just walk into a bathroom and twist a faucet. You grab your thin leather sandals, step over your snoring uncle, and make your way outside. The sun's just beginning to burn through the smoggy Roman haze, and the streets already alive. Vendors yelling, kids chasing stray dogs. Someone's carrying a goose. There's always someone carrying a goose. You head toward the thermi, the public bathhouse. It's not close, but it's your only option. Bathing in Rome is communal. It's routine. It's how you stay clean, stay social, and with luck, avoid skin infections. As you walk, you pass rows of multi-story buildings, some leaning precariously. You dodge a cart full of amphorae, and then finally, the warm stone exterior of the bathhouse comes into view. Columns, arches, a carved statue of Venus that's been vandalized by teenagers. You pay your entry fee. Not much, just a few quadrantes. Poorer citizens might get in for free, thanks to some wealthy donor trying to win public favor. But you pay. Inside, it's a different world. The air is thick with steam and conversation. Naked bodies shuffle between rooms. The walls are covered in mosaics. Dolphins, ships, heroes, holding up towels like champions. You're handed a small flask of olive oil and a strigil. A curved metal scraper. That's right. This isn't just rinse and repeat. You're about to scrape the filth off your body like icing off a burnt cake. First, you head into the apoditerium, the changing room. You find a niche in the wall and stash your tunic. You try to ignore the 2 guys arguing over stolen sandals. Theft in bathhouses? Common. That's why some people hire slaves to watch their stuff. You don't have that kind of budget. Then comes the tepidarium, the warm room. You sit, breathe, let the heat open your pores. It's calming, soothing, except for the man next to you who's humming something that sounds like a funeral dirge. Next, the caldarium. Hot, very hot. Your feet slap against the wet marble As you step into the steam, the air hits you like a wave. You sit on a stone bench, olive oil in hand, and begin to rub it across your skin. No soap, just oil. And once you're good and slick, you take the strigil and scrape. Long, slow strokes. Dirt, sweat, dead skin, gone, sort of. Now you smell like warm olives and old ambition. You rinse with ladles of hot water from a basin near the wall. One man is splashing like a fish. Another is meditating. You try not to stare at the birthmark, shaped like Sicily, on someone's shoulder. Eventually, you move to the frigidarium. The cold plunge, because Roman hygiene isn't complete until your pores snap shut like angry oysters. You ease in slowly. Try not to gasp. A man nearby just dunked himself and came up yelling about the gods. You sit, shivering slightly, but refreshed. Clean. Roman clean. You climb out, dry off with a cloth that smells only mildly of mildew, and return to the changing room. Your tunic is still there. Victory. Outside, the sun is brighter now. You feel lighter, more human. You survived the morning Roman bath. Your skin tingles, your muscles ache. Your strigil has done its job. You walk home barefoot because your sandals were, in fact, stolen. Again, welcome to Rome. You return home with olive oil still clinging faintly to your skin, and the unmistakable sensation of being temporarily less filthy. That counts as a win. Your sandals are gone, sure, but at least you're not crusted in yesterday's grime. You slide past your neighbors on the stairwell. An old woman carrying 2 clay pots, a boy chewing on a fig, and someone singing off-key about Mars. The insula is alive again. The walls whisper. The ceilings leak. Someone's cooking something that smells like boiled despair. Back in your room, your straw mattress looks like it's been punched. Your uncle is still snoring, now joined by a new snore, possibly a cousin. You don't check. You sit, breathe, admire your semi-clean fingernails, but don't get too comfortable, because staying clean in ancient Rome is a full-time job, and public bathing, that's just the beginning. A couple of hours later, your stomach growls. You head down to the forum for food, some bread, maybe a slice of cheese, a date if you're feeling extravagant. You sit on a low wall and watch life unfold. Senators in fine robes, children covered in dust, vendors wiping sweat with rags that haven't been cleaned since Nero was a baby, and everyone, everywhere, smells okay. Not great, not terrible, just Rome, because Romans are obsessed with bathing. And the public bathhouse isn't just a hygiene stop. It's the heart of the city, the social engine, the place where business deals are made, rumors are spread, and bodies are scrubbed until they glow or fall apart. So, after lunch, you decide to go back. Yes, again. Some people visit the bathhouse twice a day, especially if you're wealthy or just really don't want to be near your family. This time, you bring a friend. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus is the kind of guy who knows everyone, talks too loud, and always finds the best spot near the heat vent. As you enter, Marcus starts listing everyone in the room. That guy, Senator. That guy, owns 6 taverns. That guy? Probably owes me money. You nod, trying to keep track, but you're more focused on the man currently getting a full-body oil massage while loudly dictating a love poem. He's got 2 slaves, working in tandem, one on his shoulders, the other on his calves. Marcus waves to someone. You're waved back. You feel oddly important, because being at the bath isn't just about being clean. It's about being seen. There's a rhythm. Here, a routine. The same faces, the same rituals. You start in the warm room again, olive oil in hand, letting your pores open like gates. Then you go to the exercise yard. Yes, Romans often worked up a sweat before they bathed. You and Marcus toss a ball with a few others, naked, obviously, while a poet on the sidelines tries to write an epic about hygiene. You miss the ball twice. Someone laughs. You mutter something about sore shoulders from climbing a ladder yesterday. Eventually, back into the steam, the scrape, the rinse. You're starting to get it now. This isn't about removing dirt. It's about resetting your soul. There's a kind of therapy in the repetition. Rub, scrape, dunk, chill, breathe. Rub, scrape, dunk, chill, breathe. And then you sit on a bench and listen to the men debating in the corner, to the gossip about a gladiator's new lover, to a whispered conversation about imported silk that may or may not have been liberated from a caravan, because the bathhouse is Rome's version of social media, filtered through sweat and steam. It's where politics are discussed, alliances formed, and backs stabbed, sometimes literally, depending on the week. Historians still argue whether the bathhouse was more about hygiene or about networking. The answer is yes. You sit with Marcus in the cold plunge again, shivering but smiling. You've been here for nearly 2 hours. You're clean, you're calmer, you're connected. Then Marcus stands suddenly. He's got a dinner invitation. You're not invited, but he winks and tells you he'll bring you leftovers. You watch him leave, water dripping from his elbows, strigil in hand, as proud as a senator leaving the Senate. You stay a little longer. Let your muscles relax. Let the water quiet your thoughts. You're beginning to understand something deep and ancient. In Rome, to bathe is to belong. You climb out, dry off. Your skin is red and warm and tired, and it's only mid-afternoon. You dress, this time hiding your sandals under your tunic hem. Lesson learned. You step back into the street. Still Rome, still loud, still beautiful, in a chaotic, olive oil slicked kind of way. You make your way home, slightly damp, but more at peace than this morning. Tomorrow, you'll come back, because that's what Romans do. And if you're going to survive here, you'll do it too. You wake up the next day with your shoulder stuck to your tunic, because sleeping after 2 rounds of olive oil and no towel was, in retrospect, not your brightest moment. You peel yourself off the straw mattress, stretch your arms overhead, and hear about 4 different things crack. The room smells like someone tried to cook lentils and set shame on fire. You need the baths again. Not want. Need. Because in Rome, being clean isn't a one-time achievement. It's a lifestyle. And if you want to keep up appearances and avoid the neighborhood dogs treating you like a rotting bone, you'd better get to it. This time, though, you're going to do it right. You step into the thermi early, before the crowds turn the place into a sweaty version of the Senate. The marble floors are still damp from yesterday, the water steaming faintly in the early light, and only a handful of men are shuffling between rooms, their expressions somewhere between sleepy and smug. Place your clothes in the apoditerium, carefully tucking them into a wall niche. You give them a long, lingering look, like a mother saying goodbye to her child, boarding a dangerous ship, because you know there's a real chance they'll be gone when you return. You move into the tepidarium, the warm room. The air is thick and humid, like breathing through a wool scarf. You sit on a smooth bench, close your eyes, and feel your skin start to release everything it's been holding in. Not just sweat, but stress, regret. That conversation with the baker who said your breath smelled like a gladiator's sock. This is where the magic starts. After your pores have had a good 15 minutes of sauna-style soul cleansing, you head into the caldarium. And yes, it's hotter than yesterday. The steam hits you like a wall of boiling soup. The marble floor is warm. The water in the basin simmers like a giant pot waiting for ingredients. You sit down on the edge, dip your feet in, and reach for the oil flask. Step 1. Apply oil. Generously. You pour it into your hands and rub it over your arms, your chest, your neck, your legs. It smells faintly of herbs, maybe thyme, maybe whatever the vendor had on sale yesterday. It coats your skin in a slick sheen that somehow makes you feel dirtier before you get clean. Step 2. The strigil. This curved metal blade is your best friend and your worst enemy. You take it in your hand, cold and smooth, and begin the scraping. Long, slow, rhythmic. You drag it across your shoulder, down your arm, and watch as a thin mixture of oil, sweat, and the city's collective pollution builds up like some unholy salad dressing. You scrape again, and again. Your skin tingles. You feel lighter. Behind you, a man grunts loudly with each scrape. Across from you, a boy is being cleaned by a servant who's clearly done this 500 times and no longer has the will to care. You lean back, stretch out your legs, and for a moment, you feel perfect, Roman perfect. You rinse off with ladles of hot water. It pours over your shoulders in soothing waves. You don't even flinch when the man next to you sneezes directly into the steam. You've accepted this. You move on to the frigidarium, the cold plunge. It's waiting for you. Still, clear, icy. You take a deep breath, step in, and every nerve in your body wakes up and demands to speak to your supervisor. You submerge to your shoulders, gasping, grinning, and feeling like a soldier who just survived a siege. That's the cycle. Warm, hot, oil, scrape, cold, breathe. You sit on a bench beside the pool, your strigil beside you, your skin flushed and gleaming. A servant walks by offering small towels and cups of water. You accept both. Thank them. Sip slowly. Someone starts singing. Badly. You don't even care. Because you feel clean. Not just on the outside, but deep inside your ribs. like the grime of everyday Roman life, has been rinsed off and scraped away, one olive-slicked inch at a time. You glance over at your clothes. Still there. Miracle. You dry off. Redress. Tie your sandals with newfound appreciation, and you step out into the noise and chaos of Rome with your head held high. You're not just clean, you're bathed. You carry yourself like someone who has faced the caldarium and lived. And later, when your neighbor complains that you still smell like goat and ambition, you'll smile gently and whisper, "Try the baths," because once you've mastered the Roman cleaning cycle, you never go back. You think you've got it down now. The rhythm of it, the method, the satisfaction of emerging from a bathhouse, shiny as a well-oiled statue, and slightly dazed from heat and human contact. But there's something you haven't quite mastered yet. The strigil. That curved little blade that looks like it was invented by someone trying to peel oranges and commit a crime at the same time. Today, you're going to get serious about it. You head to the baths again, your fourth visit this week, and you bring your own strigil. It's not fancy. Iron, slightly rusted at the tip. You found it at the market from a guy who also sells eels. You try not to think too hard about that. The bathhouse is busy today. Too busy. There's a kid running through the tepidarium screaming about a bee, and someone's left a sandal floating in the plunge pool like a soggy memorial. You undress, store your clothes, and find a quiet bench in the caldarium. You sit, open your oil flask. Same blend as yesterday, slightly more rancid, and rub it into your skin slowly, deliberately. Because here's the secret to the Roman clean. It's not about washing, it's about scraping. Soap is for barbarians. You coat yourself in oil because it loosens the dirt and clings to sweat. It forms a kind of skin salad dressing, and the strigil is your fork. You press the curve of it against your forearm and drag. The first pass is disappointing, barely a shine, just a faint smear of oil. You go again. Press harder. Now you see it. A film of oil, dust, dead skin, and regret. Success. You scrape your arms, your chest, your thighs. You skip the shins today. They're still sore from yesterday's sprint away from a goat cart. The man next to you, older, bigger, far too confident, grunts approvingly. "You're doing it wrong," he says. He reaches over, takes your strigil, demonstrates with terrifying enthusiasm. The scraping sound is somewhere between a violin screech and a rug being beaten. He hands it back. Harder, he grins. You thank him. Try not to look terrified. Resume your work. Historians still argue whether the strigil was primarily hygienic or symbolic, part of a cultural performance of cleanliness. Either way, it's effective and painful and oddly satisfying. You scrape your neck, your shoulders, under your arms. You accidentally smack yourself in the nose with the handle. You pretend it didn't happen. A boy nearby scrapes his whole leg in one pass and proudly shows it to his father, who gives him a grape as a reward. You think about asking for one too. Instead, you finish your session and rinse in the hot basin. The water runs cloudy with oil. You feel like a boiled fish, but a clean boiled fish. Then comes the bonus round. A servant with a larger strigil offers to finish you off. You hesitate. He doesn't. Before you can answer, he starts scraping your back with expert precision. Every muscle tightens. Every scrape feels like you're being ironed by the gods. But you survive. You tip him a coin. He nods. You sit in the frigidarium for a long time, letting the cold close your pores like little whispers of goodbye. When you finally dress, your skin is smooth. Your strigil is proudly tucked into your belt, and you walk with the confidence of a man who's been exfoliated to the bone. Outside, the city roars. You're back in the real Rome now. Dust, smoke, shouting, donkeys, vendors, chaos, but none of it sticks to you, because under your tunic, under your sandals, beneath the noise and grime of empire, you're clean, strigil clean. You know how this works now. You've oiled, you've scraped, you've plunged, but today, something's different. Today, you notice what you missed. All along, everyone's talking. Everywhere you turn. In the tepidarium, in the caldarium, even next to the guy humming off-key near the footpaths. People are engaged in full-blown conversations. Loud ones, animated ones, gossip, debate, philosophy, and what sounds suspiciously like sports betting. Because in ancient Rome, bathing isn't a solitary ritual. It's not about candles, lo-fi music, or silence. It's a party. A slightly sweaty, olive oil slicked, occasionally awkward social mixer. You arrive a little later than usual, and the thermae are packed. The air in the apoditerium is thick with the smells of damp linen and hopeful cologne. You squeeze past two men loudly arguing about grain prices and store your tunic in the only empty niche, right next to a chunk of bread someone forgot 2 days ago. You step into the tepidarium, and immediately you're hit by a wall of words. On your left, two women whisper about a senator's third mistress. On your right, a pair of teenagers are mock wrestling and laughing so hard they spill someone's flask of oil. A merchant waves his arms dramatically, mid-story about a fish that was this big, I swear. You sit near the center, trying to mind your own bath, but it's impossible. A man with a voice like thunder starts reciting poetry, loudly. He's not bad. He's also not asked to stop. Someone claps. A servant slips and drops a bucket. Someone else suggests a toast. Despite there being no wine, it's chaos. It's beautiful, because Roman baths are your daily feed. This is where you catch up on news, complain about taxes, boast about your cousin's new villa, and hear all the juiciest rumors. You move into the caldarium. It's even louder. The echo here makes every laugh twice as obnoxious. You recognize a few voices. A baker arguing with a soldier, a woman asking for a loan mid-scrape, and someone complaining loudly that the water's too hot, like every damn time. You find a seat near the wall and pretend not to listen. But you listen. Of course you do. One man starts telling a story about a man who tried to bribe the Vestal virgins. His friend gasps. Another snorts and says, "That's nothing. My uncle once married a Vestal. By accident." You don't ask. You move to the oiling bench, and a stranger offers to help scrape your back. This is both normal and unsettling. You accept. He asks where you're from. You answer. He launches into a tirade about olive prices. You nod, Politely, he introduces you to someone named Gaius, who sells herbs. Gaius offers you a discount on lavender if you mention the baths. Suddenly, you're networking, with no shoes on, while being scraped. You start to get it. In Rome, cleanliness is important, but connection is sacred. Historians still argue whether the baths were more about sanitation or social control. The answer? Probably both. You keep people clean. You also keep them talking, because if everyone's talking, they're not rebelling. Smart. You rinse. Move to the frigidarium. It's quieter there. Mostly. Two old men are playing dice on a towel. One cheats, the other throws a sandal. You close your eyes, sink into the cold. Later, in the dressing room, a man you've never seen before claps you on the shoulder and says, "You hear about that senator who passed out from too much steam?" You haven't. He grins. Ask the oil boy. He saw the whole thing. You walk home that evening with new gossip, a possible lavender hookup, and what might be a new friend named Gaius. You didn't expect this. You came for hygiene. You left with half the week's news. And tomorrow, you'll be back. Not just to scrape, but to listen. Let's talk about toilets. You knew this was coming, because for all the steaming baths and sweet-smelling oils, at some point in your Roman day, nature calls. And when it does, you don't get to lock yourself in a quiet little porcelain sanctuary with scented candles and a door that closes. You head for the latrina, the public toilet, which, in Rome, is exactly what it sounds like. Public. The nearest one is 2 streets away, past a bakery that smells slightly better than you remember, and a wine vendor already shouting at no one in particular. You arrive at a squat stone building with a surprisingly fancy column out front. Romans loved decorating everything, even places where you sat with your toga up and your dignity down. Inside, it's lively. There's no privacy at all. Just a long stone bench with holes spaced every 2 feet, like a very uncomfortable choir pew. Below it, a running channel of water, moving all the contents of everyone's afternoon firmly away from the premises. Hopefully, you choose a spot. Sit. Try not to make eye contact. There's casual conversation happening about dinner plans, about horses, about someone's neighbor who allegedly forged a coin. Because yes, Romans talk in the toilet. You stay quiet. Then comes the most iconic part of the experience, the tersorium. It's a stick with a sponge, and you share it. Yes, you read that right. One communal sponge on a stick, resting in a basin of vinegar water, to be used by everyone. Historians still argue whether it was cleaned properly or just swished around and hoped for the best. You hesitate. You tell yourself, vinegar is technically antibacterial. You take the stick, use it, gently, you put it back, and immediately question all your life choices. You stand, adjust your tunic, say a quiet prayer to Cloacina, the Roman goddess of sewers, and presumably patience. You exit with a new understanding of what it means to share. You head straight to the bathhouse again, because you feel unclean in ways that scraping can't fix. Back inside, you go directly to the hot water basin. You don't talk. You don't sit. You just rinse your hands, arms, face, everything but your soul. Someone nearby asks if you've tried the new sponge sticks made from goat hair. You say no. He says they exfoliate and purify. You still say no. You relax in the tepidarium, recovering, because strange as it is, Roman sanitation works. Kind of. They had running water, sewer systems, public waste disposal. For its time, the infrastructure was impressive. The Cloaca Maxima, their main sewer, was an engineering marvel. It carried waste from homes and latrines out of the city and into the Tiber River. Not perfect, not hygienic by modern standards, but for 2,000 years ago, not bad. You dry your hands. Still feel phantom sponge. You try not to think about it. That evening, you pass a slave, scrubbing a mosaic floor with vinegar water and a rag. You nod to him. He nods back. You understand each other now. The city is loud, smelly, crowded, but it's also clever, clean-ish, survivable. And if you're lucky, the next time you visit the public latrine, someone will have brought their own tersorium, or at least labeled it. You're starting to realize something important. Your clothes are betraying you, not because they're uncomfortable, although they are, not because they itch, or bunch in weird places, or make your armpits smell like boiled onions. No, they're betraying you because they can't be washed, not properly, especially your toga. You put it on this morning and instantly remember why you avoid wearing it unless it's absolutely necessary, like going to court, attending a funeral, or pretending to be more important than you actually are. It's heavy. It's hot. It takes 3 people and a good breeze to fold correctly. And if you sweat even slightly, it clings to you like guilt. You step into the sun, instantly regret it. The toga is white, or rather, it was white. Now, it's a sort of uneven gray, with the faint outline of a wine stain near the hem, and something you hope is just mud on the shoulder. You can't toss it in a laundry basket. You can't soak it in soap. You can't even hang it outside unless you want pigeons to ruin your last thread of dignity. So you do what any sensible Roman does. You take it to the Polonica, the Roman laundry. It's not glamorous. In fact, it's one of the least glamorous places in the empire. You arrive at a small shop that smells like vinegar, ammonia, and something sour you can't quite place. A slave greets you without looking up, takes your toga, and tosses it into a tub already filled with murky liquid and someone's tunic. Then he steps in barefoot and begins to stomp. Yes, stomp. Because Roman laundry isn't about delicate cycles and softeners. It's about fermented urine and bare feet. You take a deep breath. Because here's the truth. Roman laundries used human pee. Urine contains ammonia, which is excellent for breaking down grease and stains. The fuller's job, besides stepping on your clothes like they owe him money, is to soak, agitate, rinse, and beat every last fiber until it looks somewhat presentable. You ask how long it'll take. He shrugs. Depends on how much wine you spilled. You try not to look guilty. Historians still debate whether Polonica workers were respected or reviled. Some made decent money. Others were slaves. All of them had very strong calves and very little sense of smell. While you wait, you wander the shop. There are tubs everywhere, vats of vinegar, piles of wet tunics, a man in the corner scrubbing a sock with something that may or may not be sand. Someone dumps a basin of gray water into the street. You step back just in time. You hear a woman shout that her husband's tunic came back smelling worse. The fuller just shrugs. Eventually, your toga is handed back, damp, slightly wrinkled, but definitely cleaner. It also smells vaguely like fermented lemons and foot sweat. You thank him. He doesn't answer. You return home, hang the toga over a rope, and hope the breeze does what the Folonika couldn't. Later, as you sit on your balcony eating figs, you watch another man carry his garments in a basket woven from reeds. He looks proud, like he's about to present a tunic at a temple. You understand now, because Roman clothing isn't disposable. It's labor. Every stain tells a story, and every clean tunic is a quiet miracle. The next morning, you check your toga. Dry. Not bad. You fold it badly. Try again. Give up. Wear your everyday tunic instead. You step into the street, and someone compliments how fresh you look. You say, "Thank the fuller." They say, "Always." You start the day with a win. Your tunic smells almost normal. You give it a little sniff, just to be sure, and confirm it only carries the faintest memory of vinegar and someone else's foot. That's Roman clean. You'll take it. But then you step outside, and Rome greets you with a wall of odor. You inhale smoke, sweat, donkey droppings, garum, that fermented fish sauce everyone's obsessed with. More smoke, rotting vegetables, and someone's attempt at perfume that smells suspiciously like wet cinnamon. You gag, quietly, because this is normal. Rome isn't a city that smells good. It's a city that smells loud. So how did anyone, manage to feel clean here? Answer, scent armor. Romans had a whole arsenal of olfactory tricks. You head toward the market and pass a vendor selling perfumed oils. Rows of little glass bottles filled with jasmine, rose, myrrh, and one mystery blend labeled Victory. You open that one. It smells like cedar, mint, and ambition. You kind of love it. You buy a small vial. It's expensive, but worth it. Because in this city, smell is social currency. You dab a few drops on your neck, and immediately someone nearby turns and says, "Nice, not too sweet." Success. You continue down the street, more aware now of all the ways Romans wage war against stench. Outside a barber's stall, a man is rubbing a paste of crushed bay leaves and vinegar into his scalp. His barber assures him it keeps the demons out. You suspect it's also about not smelling like sewage. At a nearby stall, a woman sells incense cones that you can burn in your home to cleanse the air and ward off dead ancestors. You buy two, just in case. Historians still argue whether ancient perfumes were worn to attract, to repel, or to simply survive daily life. The answer is probably yes. You walk past a fountain and see a wealthy woman patting her face with a scented cloth. She carries it delicately, like a social shield. You glance down at your own tunic and start wondering if you can rub victory into the fabric. Spoiler, you do. Back at home, you take inventory of your personal cleaning supplies: olive oil, strigil, rough linen cloth, crushed herbs, one suspiciously sticky sponge, a bit of charcoal for your teeth. You think, not bad. You use a mixture of salt and mint leaves to scrub your armpits. It tingles. You consider this a win. Then you sit for a moment, just to breathe. But the air in your insula apartment is already starting to sour. You crack a window. Someone below is cooking cabbage. You close it again. You light one of your incense cones. The smoke curls gently, smelling like warm pine and something floral. Better, much better. You settle onto your stool, feeling civilized. That's the thing about Roman hygiene. It's not about sterilizing everything. It's about masking, layering, managing. You won't remove the smells, but you'll outsmart them. You step back outside and bump into a friend. He hugs you briefly, then pulls away, sniffing. You smell like an emperor. You grin. Thanks. It's victory. He nods approvingly. You finally get it. You walk through the forum together, passing vendors, priests, barbers, thieves, children with jam on their faces, and a goat who somehow smells better than the last man you sat next to at the baths. You pause to admire a statue. It's clean, polished, unrealistically perfect. You wonder if statues had it easier. No sweat, no smell, no sponge sticks, just smooth marble and the admiration of pigeons. You head home as the sun begins to set, your tunic still fresh, your neck still fragrant, and for a few glorious hours, you win the battle, because in the city of a million smells, you don't smell like defeat. You sleep surprisingly well. No bathhouse visit today. No mysterious sponge stick-related trauma. No Folonica fumes in your face. Just peace. Olive-scented peace. But as the sun creeps in through the wooden slats of your window, you hear something unmistakable. Scissors. Snipping. Clipping. Buzzing. And laughter. You poke your head out the window and spot the traveling tonsure, a Roman barber. He's set up a small wooden stool on the corner below your insula, already surrounded by customers. There's a line and a small pile of discarded hair rolling around like tumbleweeds of shame. You realize, instantly, and with great horror, your hair is a mess. You haven't had a trim in weeks. Your stubble is attempting a rebellion. Your neck looks like you tried to sculpt it with a spoon. So down you go. You slip on your sandals, dodge a passing cart, and slide into the back of the line. The man in front of you smells like pine resin and anxiety. The tonsure is fast, efficient, kind of terrifying. He slices through curls, scrapes chins clean with a straight razor that looks older than the Republic, and shouts things like, "You blinked," and "That ear was never straight anyway." When it's your turn, he squints at you. Hair like a senator, beard like a sailor. You sit, nod solemnly. He gets to work. The barber's chair, which is really just a slightly flatter rock, creaks as he combs, snips, and scrapes. A boy behind him grinds pumice stone into powder. Another prepares a mix of vinegar and fig sap, the Roman equivalent of aftershave and maybe mild acid. You brace yourself. The razor passes over your jawline, smooth, cold, a little too close for comfort. You grip your knees. The tonsure wipes your face with a cloth that smells like someone tried to wash it. Then he applies the vinegar sap with a dramatic flourish. Your skin burns. You do not cry. The crowd nods approvingly. You have passed the test. Historians note that Roman barbershops were the places for gossip, insults, and impromptu political debate. In fact, people often stopped in daily, not because they needed a trim, but because they needed to know what was happening. Today is no exception. A man in line claims a gladiator lost a tooth mid-fight and still won the match. Another insists his cousin saw Caesar's ghost in a bathhouse. Someone else is loudly trying to convince the barber to make his beard look like Mars, but approachable. You slip away with a fresh cut, a bruised ego, and a patch of skin on your chin that may never recover. But you look good, in a Roman sort of way. You walk to the fountain, admire your reflection in the water, and immediately try to fix a piece sticking up. You fail. It's fine. Back home, your neighbor sees you and whistles. Did the gods sculpt that jawline? Or just the tonsure? You grin. You've earned it. Later, you find a mirror shard in your belongings. A crude piece of polished bronze, barely reflective. You stare into it. Not bad. You smell decent. Your skin is clean, and your hair no longer looks like a haystack in rebellion. You feel civilized. You toss the mirror back into the pile, stretch out on your cot, and enjoy a moment of pure, unbothered self-satisfaction. Then, someone pounds on your door and yells, "You're on sponge duty again." You sigh. It was nice while it lasted. You've scraped. You've soaked. You've survived sponge duty. Twice. And now, standing in the middle of the forum with your freshly cut hair, trimmed beard, and vinegar-softened jawline, you're starting to think you've got Roman hygiene all figured out. But then, you see her, gliding through the crowd like a perfume-scented storm cloud, head held high, skin glowing, eyebrows perfect. Roman women aren't just clean, they are weaponized. You try not to stare, but it's hard not to, because you suddenly realize that all your efforts, your strigil scrapes, your oil rituals, your brave latrine adventures, are only one part of the Roman hygiene story. The other half is painted in rouge, plucked, powdered, oiled, and wearing jewelry in places you didn't know needed it. You follow, discreetly, of course, as she turns down a quieter alley and into a cosmetai stall, a Roman beauty salon. Inside, women are seated on stools, while attendants buzz around like bees in a lavender-scented hive. There's a table of glass vials, bronze tools, woven baskets of crushed herbs, and several containers labeled with things you don't recognize, except one. You do recognize lead. Yes, Romans used lead-based face cream. Still want to look fabulous? One woman has her face smeared with a white paste. Another is plucking her eyebrows with tweezers that look more like torture devices. A third is getting her hair styled into what can only be described as structural. You sit quietly in a corner, pretending to inspect a bottle of rose oil while you eavesdrop. The beauty attendant, called an ornatrix, explains how the face mask is made. Vinegar, chalk, crushed pearls, and lead oxide brightens the complexion, she says. You whisper, also shortens the lifespan. She glares. Historians still debate how aware Romans were of the dangers of lead. Some say they knew and ignored it. Others think it was just one of many risks in a world where you could die from anything, including an unlucky sneeze. The woman in the corner gets a wig adjustment. Yes, Romans wore wigs, imported hair from slaves, often blonde for status. It's curled, pinned, and lacquered into shapes that rival small architecture. You wonder how it doesn't fall off. An older woman leans forward and whispers to her attendant, "Make me look younger than my daughter-in-law." The girl nods solemnly and reaches for something that smells like burnt cinnamon and regret. You peek into a bronze mirror and realize something incredible. Everyone here is performing, not just for beauty, for power. In Rome, to look good is to stand taller, to draw attention, to rise, if not socially, then at least above the dust and sweat and a donkey smell of the street. You watch as another woman applies kohl eyeliner, sharp and dark, imported from Egypt. She draws lines with the precision of a temple priestess. Her eyes look larger, sharper, a little dangerous. A man walks by outside, peeks in, trips over his own sandal. She notices, smirks. Mission accomplished. Back outside, you walk past a stall selling cosmetics. You pause, pick up a jar labeled Venus Glow. You open it. It smells like honey, ash, and ambition. You buy it. Because why not? That night, back in your insula, you sit by the window with the jar beside you. You're not going to wear it. Probably. But it sits there like a challenge, a reminder that cleanliness in Rome isn't just about scraping dirt. It's about owning the performance. You go to sleep imagining what you'd look like in a full wig and eyebrow stencil. You dream of scented oils and the lead-based confidence. You wake to the sound of a child screaming. Not the fun kind of scream, like, "I found a frog," but the distressed, rage-filled scream of someone being cleaned against their will. You roll over, blink, yawn, and then you remember. Today, it's your turn to help wash the children. You drag yourself down 2 flights of stairs, where your cousin has already wrangled 3 of them into a loose semicircle near a bucket of lukewarm water. One is shirtless and sobbing. One is hiding under a bench. The third is chewing on a stick and looking far too calm. You sigh, because keeping kids clean in ancient Rome, it's a battlefield. You grab a linen cloth, soak it, and go for the one hiding. He bolts. You chase him halfway down the alley, catch him by the tunic, and carry him back like a squirming sack of eels. Once you have him still, sort of, you start the process. No soap, of course. You rub his arms with olive oil and crushed thyme, then use a child-sized strigil to scrape the days, grime off his skin. He screams again. You shush him. He bites your finger. The second child is slightly more cooperative, mostly because your cousin has bribed her with honey-soaked bread. You clean her face, legs, and neck, while she hums a tuneless song about monsters and figs. The third, still chewing the stick. You leave him for last. He might be the cleanest one anyway. Historically, children in Rome weren't expected to be spotless, but they were still scrubbed regularly, especially if the family had even a drop of social aspiration. Smelling like donkey sweat? Acceptable. Smelling like you've never bathed? Scandalous. But kids hate baths. Universally. You pause to clean the ears of the honey-bred child and extract something unidentifiable. You don't ask questions. You just flick it into the street and whisper, "Let the gods deal with that." Next comes hair. You mix a quick rinse, rose water and vinegar, warmed slightly over coals. It smells surprisingly nice. You pour it gently over each child's head, then massage their scalps with your fingers, searching for lice. Of course, there are lice. There are always lice. You squash too. The boy chewing the stick finally blinks and says, "Hey." You realize he thought you were giving him a scalp massage. You hand him the cloth. Your turn. He scrubs his arms for a few seconds, then immediately wipes his nose with it. You try not to cry. Cleaning children in ancient Rome is less about sanitation and more about damage control. Keep them oiled, keep them combed, keep them from rolling in ash for at least 1 full hour. You glance around. Mission halfway accomplished. Your cousin brings out a jar of perfumed balm, a gift from a neighbor who swears it repels insects and evil spirits. You smear a bit on each child's neck. They smell like lavender and fear. Then you do something unexpected. You laugh, because despite the struggle, despite the kicking and nose wiping and bite marks, something about the whole chaotic ritual feels right. It's noisy, messy, a little gross, but it's Roman. And for a moment, you understand that even in the heart of this vast, crowded, unpredictable empire, someone's always trying to keep their kids clean, to make order from stick-chewing madness. Later that afternoon, you pass a group of upper-class children being led by a tutor. Their tunics are spotless, their sandals tied just so, their faces serene. You know they were probably scrubbed that morning by 3 servants and bribed with raisins. You nod at the tutor. He nods back, exhausted. You've both been in the trenches. That evening, you clean your own hands. Twice. You light some incense. Stretch out on your bed. Hear no screaming. Victory. The next morning begins with incense. Not yours. Someone else's. A strong, musky plume of smoke wafts through the cracks in your wall, riding on the chance of an early procession passing by the insula. You sit up, blinking, half covered by your blanket and already sweating. It's going to be a hot day. You pull on your tunic, still scented with yesterday's lavender balm and a hint of child. You step out onto the wooden balcony and look down. There, below, a small crowd has gathered near a public shrine. A priest in pale robes sprinkles water from a bronze ladle onto the steps, mumbling in Latin while swinging a pot of burning herbs. The crowd murmurs along. Someone sneezes. You watch, intrigued, because in ancient Rome, cleanliness wasn't just about hygiene. It was spiritual. You make your way down and slip into the back of the group. The ritual continues. A goat somewhere in the distance bleats in protest. You ignore it. The priest pours a bit of lustral water, a mix of spring water, salt, and maybe crushed laurel, over a small altar stone. This act, it's not about bathing, it's about purification for the space, for the people, for the gods. In Rome, physical filth and spiritual impurity were tightly connected. If you smelled bad, maybe your soul did too. You shift uncomfortably. The man next to you hasn't seen a bath in weeks. You inch away, spiritually and physically. Later, you head toward one of the major temples, passing statues smeared with offerings, olive oil, garlands, a moldy piece of bread no one has claimed. You enter the courtyard, nod to the guards, and step into cool stone silence. Inside, a woman kneels at a basin, dipping her fingers in water and touching her forehead, then her chest, then her shoulders. She's performing a ritual cleansing, preparing to pray. You try it. The water is cold, bracing. You feel something, not cleaner, not yet, but steadier. A priest walks by, sprinkles a bit of perfumed oil onto the floor, and lights a stick of frankincense. The smoke rises in elegant curls toward the open ceiling, where sunlight filters in like the gods themselves are watching. You are still standing awkwardly when he nods at you. First time, you nod. Don't overthink it, he says. The gods already know you smell. Comforting. You leave the temple feeling a little lighter, a little scented, and a little unsure if divine cleanliness counts toward your weekly hygiene routine. On the way home, you stop by a levatio stall, a place that sells sacred water and ritual oils to those who can't make it to the big temples. A man there offers you a bottle labeled for Juno's favor. You raise an eyebrow. It also clears skin, he adds. Sold. Back in your insula, you prepare a home ritual. You sprinkle the oil on your forehead. You light a cone of incense. You mutter a few lines from a prayer you half remember from your childhood. Then, with great care, you wash your hands, your face, your arms, not with soap, not with vinegar, but with intention. Because Rome is a city where cleaning isn't always about grime. Sometimes it's about guilt, or preparation, or respect. You sit cross-legged, the oil drying slowly on your skin, and think about how many hands have performed this exact act centuries before you, all hoping to be a little less messy in the eyes of the divine. You hear your neighbor shout from across the wall, "Are you burning something again?" You shout back, "Yes, my sins." He doesn't respond. You smile, because even if your skin is still sticky, your mind feels just a bit clearer. And in Rome, that might be the cleanest part of you. You are starting to feel a little too polished, a little too sanctified. Maybe it's all the frankincense and lead-based blush fumes. So today, you take a different route, away from the city center, away from the chants and polished temples. You're heading somewhere you've heard about, but never dared to go. A senator's private bathhouse. Because yes, while most Romans sweated out in public thermi, with stolen sandals and gossiping barbers, the wealthy elite have their own setups, quiet, opulent, and smelling like imported cedar and smugness. You arrive at the villa around mid-morning. You're greeted by a doorman who looks like he could lift a horse and insult it at the same time. He raises an eyebrow. You flash the name of your connection, your cousin's employer's uncle, who once lent the senator a chair. Barely counts, but it works. He lets you in. The atrium is silent, except for a soft trickle of water. The walls are covered in polished frescoes, figures in repose, gods bathing in stylized clouds. One dolphin for no apparent reason. You're led to the balneum, a private bath suite just off the main courtyard. The first thing you notice? It doesn't smell like sweat and wet wood. It smells like cedar, saffron, and lemon peel. The air is warm, but not humid. A servant brings you a clean tunic. Another pours wine into a delicate glass cup. You try not to gasp. The changing room doesn't have benches. It has cushions. You're handed a soft cloth for drying later and a strigil that looks polished enough to use as a mirror. You step into the tepidarium. It glows, literally. Sunlight filters through marble latticework, casting golden patterns on the warm stone floors. The benches are carved and smooth, and someone's already playing a lyre in the next room. You sit. No one talks. Because here, bathing is quiet luxury, not a social gathering, not a shouting match over olive prices, just a place where powerful people pretend they aren't thinking about power for 10 whole minutes. You soak in the caldarium. Alone, the basin is round, deep, and filled with hot water that smells faintly of cinnamon. A servant brings you oil, not olive, something lighter, imported, probably from Syria or Egypt. You rub it into your skin. Use the strigil. It glides like a dream. No scraping, no shouting, no flinching, because someone next to you just dropped their soapstone on your foot. You rinse with water poured from a bronze jug held by a servant with a calm, practiced hand. You've never felt so respected while naked. After the bath, you're led to a resting room. Pillows, fruit, silence. Someone offers to clean your ears with a delicate reed. You decline, then change your mind, then immediately regret it. You sit in silence, sipping wine and pretending you belong, because in this space, hygiene is tied to status. You smell better, look better, think better. You realize why senators don't bathe with the common crowd. It's not the water, it's the privacy, the illusion of control, the insulation from the noise of Rome. Historians debate whether private baths were more hygienic than public ones, but they agree on one thing. They were a clear symbol of class, and you're in the middle of it now. You stay longer than you should. When it's time to leave, a servant folds your used tunic and hands it to you in a basket, as if it's a gift. You nod, like this happens all the time. Back outside, the city hits you in the face, loud, sweaty, smelling like onions and ambition. Your sandals hit the dirty stone road again, and you instantly feel your glow fading. A man shouts at a pigeon. A cart hits a pothole and splashes you with what might have been water. You sigh, but you still smell like saffron, and that, for now, is enough. You walk home a little taller, because even if you don't belong in marble baths, you've been there, and your skin knows it. By the time you wake up the next morning, the saffron scent is gone. It held on longer than expected, clinging to your pillow, faintly lingering on your collar, but now it's been replaced by the more familiar aroma of musty linen and street noise drifting in through your window. You sit up, stretch, and wince as your back cracks in 3 different spots. You've had the luxury. Now it's time to remember where you really belong, because not everyone lives in villas with marble baths and lemon-scented foot servants. Most Romans, you included, live in tight, creaky insulae, and when it comes to getting clean, you learn to adapt. You throw on a tunic and make your way to the outskirts of the city, following the dusty path that leads toward a country villa. You're visiting your friend Titus today. He owns a modest stretch of land, a few goats, and what he proudly calls a rural hygiene system. You approach his property just as he's pouring warm water from a clay jug over a wooden board set up like a tilted table. A small fire crackles nearby. There's a basin for catching water, a jug of oil, and a towel that's probably seen better decades. You raise an eyebrow. He beams. No bathhouse crowd, no stolen sandals. Fair enough. He offers you a bucket to rinse your hands. The water smells like rosemary. You ask him why. He shrugs. The goats won't eat it. You follow him to a small stone platform with a shallow depression in the middle. This is the countryside's version of a caldarium. You fill it with heated water from a nearby pot. The steam rises lazily into the morning air. Then begins the ritual. It's not fancy. It's not private. But it works. You oil your arms, your chest, your neck. Titus hands you a homemade strigil carved from bone. It's not elegant, but it scrapes like a champion. You laugh. He laughs. A chicken clucks disapprovingly nearby. You rinse with cool water collected from the roof, rainwater, filtered through a net of sticks and leaves. It's cleaner than you expect. You sit on a log to dry, and Titus offers you a reed to clean your teeth. It tastes like mint, also like stick. You chat about city life, about how quiet the nights are here, about how he once saw a senator try to bathe in a stream and lose his sandal to a snapping turtle. You try not to laugh with a mouthful of reed. Historians still argue whether rural Romans were cleaner or dirtier than their urban counterparts. On the one hand, they had access to fresh water, open air, and fewer crowds. On the other, they lacked aqueducts, phalonicae, and bathhouse rotation schedules. You decide it's not about cleaner, it's about rhythm. In the city, your hygiene is a dance. Oil, scrape, soak, dodge gossip. In the countryside, it's a conversation, a slower one, with fewer steps, fewer people, and a lot more goats. Later, you help Titus gather more firewood for his heating pot. You carry a few bundles, tripping only twice. He offers you goat cheese as thanks. You accept, even though it smells like wet socks. It's tradition. That evening, you sit by a low wall near the olive trees. The sun is dipping behind the hills, casting the land in amber light. You feel tired in a good way, clean in a different way. Not scrubbed, not scented, but settled. Titus hands you a cup of diluted wine. You sip it. The breeze carries a mix of hay, ash, and thyme. You lean back and sigh, because out here, there's no saffron oil, no marble, no lyres echoing in a steam chamber, but there's space, and quiet, and a cleanliness that isn't about appearance. It's about breathing easier. You spend the night on a straw pallet under the stars. You wake up once to a goat chewing your blanket. You gently push her away and fall back asleep with the smell of rosemary and firewood still in your hair. You return to the city the next day with dirt under your fingernails and your tunic smelling faintly of goat, which is fine because now you've seen both worlds, rural clean and urban clean, and you're starting to understand how layered Roman hygiene really is. Out in the countryside, You washed with rainwater and twigs. Back here in the city, you're once again surrounded by aqueducts, bathhouses, and that distinct smell of 10,000 people sweating in close proximity. The moment you cross back into Rome, the noise hits first, then the smell, then the heat. It's like being slapped by civilization. You push through the crowd toward your neighborhood, stepping over a broken amphora and sidestepping a couple arguing in front of a cheese stall. Your sandals stick briefly to something you choose not to investigate. Welcome home. You decide to visit a public fountain to wash up. It's nothing fancy, just a stone spout fed by an aqueduct, but the water flows clear and cool. A boy is already there, rinsing his hands. An old woman fills a jar. A dog drinks from a puddle below. You splash your face, scrub your arms, roll up your tunic, and rinse your legs. Someone nearby mumbles that washing outside like this is for peasants. You look up. He's missing 3 teeth. You say nothing, because here's the truth. In a city like Rome, access to water is power, and the real power lies in the aqueducts. You glance up at the towering stone arches snaking across the skyline. They don't just carry water. They carry order, civilization, the illusion that everything is under control. Even when the streets smell like pickled onions and regret, you make your way toward the Thermi. But along the way, you stop to admire a massive cistern being cleaned by a group of workers. One of them is waist deep in muck, pulling out debris with a carved wooden rake. Lost another sandal, he says to no one in particular. You salute him. That man is a hero. Inside the bathhouse, you notice the water is unusually warm today. Someone mentions that a new section of the aqueduct has been opened. The engineers redirected the flow. More pressure, better heat. You nod, pretending to understand hydraulics. But the truth is, Roman water systems are mind-blowing. Some aqueducts stretch for miles. They bring water from distant hills, across valleys, over bridges, and through tunnels, just to fill your bath, feed your fountain, or flush your latrine. Historians still debate how the Romans managed such precision without modern tools. Some say genius, others say slave labor and trial by flooding. You soak in the caldarium, listening to the pipe beneath your feet rumble with fresh water. A man nearby sighs contentedly and says, "Nothing like mountain water and politics." You don't know what that means, but it feels profound. After bathing, you walk home a new route and pass a laundry workshop where women scrub tunics in wide stone basins. The water smells like ash and stale citrus. One of them curses loudly about someone leaving. Olives in a pocket. You decide not to interrupt. That evening, you climb to your roof and watch as the sun sets behind the arches of the aqueduct. Pigeons roost between its stones. Children chase each other in the street below. Someone's burning something nearby. And for once, it doesn't smell entirely awful. You sit there, thinking about how water connects it all. Baths, fountains, toilets, shrines. Even that time you nearly fell into the Follonica vat. It's all part of the system. Part of staying clean in a city that was never designed to be quiet or simple. You light a small oil lamp, let the smoke rise, and whisper a quick thanks to the engineers who made it all possible. And then, with your skin warm from the bath and your mind soaked in gratitude, you finally relax. You wake up to the sound of drums. Not a parade, not a festival. Just your neighbor's children banging pots together because apparently sleep is for the weak. You roll over. Your tunic sticks to you again. Not because you haven't bathed. You have. Twice this week, even. It's because Rome is a furnace, and you live in the third floor of an insula with exactly one window and 0 breezes. You drag yourself out of bed and pour the last of your water jug over your head. It helps, a little, but it also reminds you need more water. So you grab your bucket and head toward the public fountain, passing a long line of citizens already grumbling under the sun. One man holds a sign that reads, "We need more aqueducts," or "fewer people." He's not wrong. You fill your bucket, rinse your hands, and sip a bit before lugging it back toward your building. On the way, you pass a street vendor selling sun protection oils. You stop, because today's forecast, hot, dry, and extremely Roman. The vendor offers you a small pot labeled anti-sol burntus. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Olive oil? Beeswax, crushed rose petals, and a little white lead. Of course, everything has lead. You buy it anyway. Back home, you smear a little on your face. It's surprisingly smooth, smells pleasant, makes your forehead shine like polished marble. And this is where you realize something. Romans had a sun protection game. Sure, they didn't know about UVA or SPF 50, but they did know the sun could wreck your face. So, they created a whole range of ointments, balms, and pastes to keep their skin from turning into fried dough. You step out again, this time toward the forum, where merchants are already shouting over one another and sweating through layers of linen. You pass a woman with chalk-white cheeks and a deep tan neck. Her makeup tells one story. Her sun exposure tells another. That's the Roman paradox. Looking clean is often more important than being clean. You duck into a shaded archway and sit for a moment. Your forehead's already sweating through the balm. You wonder if you can reapply without looking ridiculous. Spoiler, you can't. But you do it anyway. Someone nearby is rubbing their arms with olive oil mixed with crushed mint leaves, not just for scent, but to cool the skin. You lean in a little. It actually smells amazing. You ask where they got it. From my cousin, they say. She sells at the edge of the Subura. Just follow the smell of donkey sweat and citrus. Got it. Historians still argue how effective Roman sun protection really was. Some ingredients, like beeswax and mineral powders, offered real physical barriers. Others, like lead-based creams, probably caused more problems than they solved. But Romans were innovators, and when it came to keeping their skin clean and bright, they were relentless. That evening, you sit at your window, watching the light fade across the rooftops. A few neighbors still sunbathe on the top level. One applies oil with a feather. Another appears to be using clay. A third just lays there, arms out, sizzling like fish in a pan. You check your reflection in a polished bronze dish. Your face glows, not with divine favor, with sweat. But hey, it's the clean kind. Sort of. Before bed, you wipe down your arms and legs with a cloth soaked in cool vinegar and rose water. It stings a little, but it's refreshing. You feel human again. Not fragrant, not fancy, but sun-safe and somewhat less sticky. You lay down and think, tomorrow, You'll visit that cousin in the Sabura. See if she's got anything that smells better than donkey sweat and lasts longer than 2 minutes. Because Rome may be hot, chaotic, and covered in lead-based cosmetics, but staying clean, that's a full-time performance, and the show goes on. You make good on your plan. By mid-morning, you're weaving your way through the tangled alleyways of the Sabura, Rome's noisiest, dustiest, and arguably smelliest neighborhood. It's where bakers argue with poets, thieves sell miracle olives, and goats appear in places they absolutely should not be. And apparently, it's where your new sun protection supplier lives. You follow your nose through the fish stalls, past a man yelling about second-hand sandals, until you catch a whiff of citrus, mint, and smoke. You've found her. She's got a stand wedged between a fig vendor and a guy selling bird cages. On the table, a wild collection of jars, bottles, bundles of herbs, a bowl of crushed charcoal, and something that looks like melted honey. You nod. She nods back. No words exchanged. You point to the bowl. She dips a finger, rubs it on your arm, and says, "Repels insects, softens skin, and makes you smell like a respectable person. Sold." You buy a small pot, plus a reed comb dipped in rosemary oil, for your scalp. She throws in a bonus, a pouch of ground lupin seeds, apparently good for scrubbing off dead skin and bad luck. You thank her and make your way back toward the forum, passing a man scraping his ankles with what looks like a seashell and muttering something about curses. Rome is a hygiene ecosystem, and the streets are its strangest laboratories. You head toward the bathhouse, not because you need a full soak, but because your face still smells like melted goat from last night's vinegar rinse. On the way, you stop at a perfume stall. There's a tiny vial labeled Pompeian Glow. You sniff. It smells like lilies, smoke, and a mild confidence. You buy it. You can't help yourself. Inside the therme, you go straight to the bench by the window. Half sun, half shade. A perfect place for your new routine. You start by dampening your skin with warm water. Then you rub on the ground lupin seed powder, mixing it with olive oil in your hand until it forms a gritty paste. It smells earthy, feels rough. You scrub your arms, your legs, your neck, carefully avoiding your eyes. A man across from you asks if it's for medical use or spiritual cleansing. You shrug. Yes. He nods like you've said something wise. After the scrub, you rinse. You notice your skin feels different, smoother, slightly red, but in a triumphant kind of way. You follow up with the balm from the Sabura stand. It melts into your skin like warm butter on bread. The smell hits instantly, bright, herbal, a little wild. The man across from you leans in and says, "Are you trying to attract someone or just confuse them?" "Both," you reply. Historians still argue whether Roman skincare routines were purely aesthetic, medicinal, or spiritual. The truth is, they were often all three, layered like a philosophical cake. Each step meant something, even if that something was just, "Please let me not smell like feet for once." After finishing, you sit for a moment. Breathe. Your skin glistens. Your hands smell like rosemary and orange. And your soul, just a little, feels like it's been exfoliated too. You leave the bathhouse without rushing. You walk a little slower, a little straighter. Someone bumps into you near the bakery. They pause, sniff the air, and say, "Is that mint?" You nod. They nod back with respect. Back home, your neighbor asks if you've been blessed by a priest. You say, "No, I met a woman in the Subura," which, in Rome, means almost the same thing. That night, you light a small candle, sit near your open window, and apply one final dab of Pompeian glow to your wrists. The scent rises into the warm air. The city buzzes below, and you drift to sleep, knowing that in a world of dust, sweat, and uncertainty, you are, for the moment, impossibly clean. You've scrubbed with seeds. You've soaked in scented oil. You've made small talk with strangers while nude and shiny in a steam room. You've done it all. Well, almost all. Because today, something darker looms. You walk through the city with a strange stillness in the air. The vendors aren't shouting. The fountains still run, but the children are quiet. A black cloth hangs across the doorway of a nearby domus, and a neighbor crosses herself as she walks past. Someone has died, and you've been asked to help with the washing. In Rome, death isn't private, it's public, loud, sacred, and, yes, clean. You arrive at the home of the deceased, an elderly man, once a trader, known in the neighborhood for having unusually bright white teeth. You're greeted by his daughter, eyes swollen from crying, but standing tall. Inside, the house smells of rosemary and charcoal. Curtains are drawn. Mirrors are covered. The air is heavy. A priest has already visited. Prayers have been said. But before the procession, before the eulogy, before the burial, there must be cleansing. The body lies on a stone table, cool, still, wrapped in linen, and you begin. First, warm water and wine, a mixture used to anoint and cleanse the skin, both literally and symbolically. You dip a cloth, squeeze it gently over his forehead, then wipe along the arms, the chest, the face. His skin is thin, paper-like. A friend of the family lights incense. Another prepares laurel leaves, a sign of purity, of honor. They'll be placed around the body later, but for now, you soak one in the water. The scent is calming, sharp, but sacred. You move slowly, carefully, not just out of respect, but because in Rome, how the body is prepared says everything about the life it lived. You rinse his hands. You comb his hair with a wooden comb dipped in rose oil. You brush away dirt from his nails. You wash behind his ears. Historians still debate whether the cleansing was done primarily for hygiene or as a purification ritual. The answer, again, is both. Romans believed that death polluted the household spiritually, and that water, especially scented or sacred, helped balance the scales. You feel that now. Not just grief, duty. When the washing is done, you help wrap the body in fresh linens. A coin is placed in his mouth for Charon, the ferryman of the underworld. He'll need it for passage. Someone opens a window. Light spills in, and the air shifts. The body is laid in a funerary bed. Laurel is arranged. The perfume of oil and incense lingers in every corner. You step outside, hands stained faintly with rose and smoke. Your clothes smell like reverence. You walk home slowly, At the fountain, you rinse your hands again, this time with a handful of salt rubbed across your palms, just in case. Later, a neighbor tells you, "You did good. He looks peaceful." You nod. You don't need thanks, because today wasn't about you. It was about offering the last, quiet gift a Roman can give: cleansing before the unknown. That night, you sit by your window and light no candle, just silence. Your hands are still, your breath is steady, and you fall asleep, knowing that in a city obsessed with life, even the dead are kept clean. You spend the next few days with a quiet ache in your chest, not just from grief, but from something harder to describe. Maybe it's the stillness that followed. Maybe it's the way the scent of rose oil still lingers in your tunic. Or maybe it's that Roman life, for all its noise and motion, keeps finding the new ways to remind you how fragile it all is. And just when you think you've earned a moment of peace, you get a tap on the shoulder. It's your neighbor, Lucius. "You've been drafted," he says. "Into what?" you ask. He smirks. "The Legion." You blink. "Just for a few days," he adds. "We're marching to the coast. There's a parade. We're cleanup crew. Literally. And before you can invent a convincing illness, you're in armor, wearing a helmet that smells like 6 other heads, being handed a dented water bucket and a sponge on a stick. Welcome to military hygiene. The march itself is punishing. Dust kicks up from every footstep. Your sandals rub blisters into your heels. Your sweat creates new patterns in your tunic. And the guy next to you, he's definitely using the same pair of socks from last week. You quickly learn that staying clean on a military campaign is more about strategy than soap. First rule: buddy scrubbing. After a long march, you and your fellow legionaries take turns washing each other's backs with small cloths soaked in water, vinegar, and whatever herbs. The cook isn't guarding. It's not glamorous. It's not even particularly effective, but it keeps you from turning into a walking disease. Second rule: share the bucket, not the lice. Everyone dunks their tunic in the same water. Everyone pretends it helps. You start recognizing people by the particular flavor of stink they emit. Yours is sweaty sandal and regret. Someone else smells like onions and raw ambition. Third rule: don't touch the sponge stick unless you're desperate. It's the same design used in the public latrines. Only now, it travels. You try not to think about it. The commander insists on weekly foot inspections. Clean soldiers don't die of toe rot, he says. Inspiring. So every 7 days, you sit in a line with 50 other grumbling men, rubbing your feet with vinegar and praying no one points out the moldy spot on your heel. Baths only if you're lucky enough to camp near a stream. And even then, you're usually scrubbing off with cold water, under watch, next to someone singing badly about Jupiter's backside. You adapt. You scrape your arms with sticks. You rinse your hair with wine once, when the water runs low. You invent a cologne out of crushed rosemary and leftover fish oil. It's terrible. You wear it anyway, because Roman soldiers are expected to fight, and to look decent doing it. Historians still argue how clean Roman legions actually were. Some accounts describe discipline so strict, soldiers had to clean their mess kits twice a day. Others suggest hygiene fell apart the minute a battle started. Both are probably true. But one thing is clear: Cleanliness was survival. Wounds infected easily. Dirty feet meant amputations. Plague could start with one sneeze. So, you keep washing, keep scraping, keep praying to Fortuna that your tunic doesn't collapse in protest. After 5 days, you return home sunburnt, bruised, and soaked in campfire smoke. You're greeted at your door by your cousin, who wrinkles his nose and says, "You smell like disappointment and goat." You nod proudly. That night, you soak in the bathhouse for 2 full hours. You scrape so hard your skin shines like polished bronze. You rinse with cold water. You dab your wrists with Pompeian glow. And when you finally lay down in bed, clean, oiled, and mercifully alone, you realize something. You could survive battle. You could survive blisters. You could survive shared sponge, sticks. But you'll never take a hot soak for granted again. You wake up before the sun rises, not by choice. The air feels wrong, too quiet, too still. You step outside and see it. A cart rolling slowly past, its driver pale, wrapped in cloth, eyes darting. Then another. Behind him, someone shouting for a physician. And then, whispers. Plague, your stomach knots. You've heard the stories. How fast it spreads. How the gods ignore your prayers when the air itself turns against you. You pull your tunic tighter and go back inside. Fast. Because when sickness comes to Rome, everything changes, including how you clean. You boil water, toss in sprigs of rosemary, mint, and whatever else is nearby that smells like not dying. You wash your hands, your arms, your face, again and again. Then you do something unusual. You burn your laundry. Yes, all of it. The city is on edge. People cover their mouths with cloth soaked in vinegar. Streets that once echoed with shouts and laughter now stay eerily silent. Even the bathhouse closes. And that's when things start to unravel. Because now, people start saying what they've always feared to say. That bathwater was the problem. That steam spreads disease, that the strigils carry death. And for the first time in your life, you don't bathe. Not because you don't want to, because everyone's afraid. Historians still argue whether bathing helped or worsened plague outbreaks. Some suggest that communal water made it easier for illness to spread. Others point to neglect of sanitation once the baths closed, saying that not bathing may have been the real mistake. All you know is this: the absence of cleanliness feels worse than the dirt itself. You scrub with vinegar every day. You crush dried herbs into a powder and rub them under your arms. You hang garlands of garlic above your doorway. Your neighbor ties laurel to his sandals so the gods can see him from below. You try not to cough. When someone down the street collapses, the body is taken at night, quietly. The smell of incense fills the alley. You start boiling everything. Water for your face, for your clothes, for your mouth. You don't trust the aqueduct anymore. One evening, you sneak to the old bathhouse. It's locked, but you find a servant there, sweeping the steps. You ask him if anyone still bathes inside. He looks around, lowers his voice. Only the desperate. You nod and walk away. Because the real filth now isn't on your skin. It's in the air. Days blur. Some people start bathing again, but only at home, quietly. A trickle of water, a bowl, a prayer. You hear of one man who dug his own private pool, filled it with wine, and sat in it for hours. He claims he's never felt healthier. You don't have that kind of money, but you do mix oil with ash and scrub until your skin burns. Because even if the gods have turned away, you haven't. You clean because you have to. Because the act itself is defiance. It's a ritual against despair, a promise that you still care about being alive. Eventually, the carts stop rolling. The whispers fade. The baths reopen. Carefully, cautiously, you return. The water smells like vinegar and too many prayers, but you step in anyway. You scrape your arms, rinse your face, breathe. It's not just the heat that relaxes you, it's the feeling that maybe the worst is over. You don't know for sure. No one does. But for now, the strigil is back in your hand, and you're still here. Still cleansing, still fighting, still Roman. There's a moment when it all starts to blur. You're not sure if it's from the steam, the repetition, or the olive oil finally seeping into your brain. But your hygiene routine has become something else, something deeper. It's no longer a task, it's a rhythm. You wake, you scrape, you rinse, you oil, you sit, you listen. It's all beginning to feel like a kind of moving meditation, as though bathing in Rome isn't just a practice, it's a philosophy. Today, you don't even wait for the crowd to thin. You enter the bathhouse early, sandals slapping across the marble floor, your tunic already damp with anticipation. The air is thick, fragrant, humming with voices, some familiar, some not, and yet there's a calmness to it, a predictability. You move from room to room without thinking. Tepidarium, caldarium, frigidarium, like a sacred circuit. This time, you notice more. Not the dirt, not the sweat, but the people. A mother washing her son with a rhythm that could put poets to shame. An elderly man whispering a prayer before rinsing his feet. Two friends massaging each other's shoulders. Not for cleanliness, but for connection. You join a small group near the oil basin. One man is telling a story about his father's favorite bathhouse in Ostia. Another describes the best soap he ever used, made from goat tallow and lemon peel. You add your tale about vinegar foot baths and accidentally slipping into the plunge pool. They laugh. It's not a big laugh, but a knowing one. There's something warm about it, communal, real. Historians debate whether Roman baths were more about the body or the spirit. You're beginning to think it doesn't matter. When you bathe with someone, you're not just sharing water, you're sharing time. You dry off next to a woman who's carefully combing oil into her hair with a carved bone pick. She offers to help you reach the back of your neck. You accept. She tells you she works in a spice stall. Smells like cardamom and cloves. You compliment the scent. She nods, finishes, and leaves without another word. Later, in the dressing room, you hear someone reciting a poem. Badly. It's about a goddess of water and how her tears became aqueducts. You listen, smile, don't correct him. Outside, Rome pulses as always, but now you feel different, lighter, like the layers of dirt you've scraped off all these weeks included more than just skin. They took the edge off your doubts, your fears, your loneliness, you walk home slower than usual, watching the city around you. A boy washes his hands in a bucket of well water, grinning. A vendor splashes his cart with rosemary water to keep it from smelling like raw fish. An old man scrubs a bench before sitting. You realize cleanliness in Rome isn't just personal, it's public, it's cultural, it's a kind of glue, one that holds together a place filled with noise, grime, contradiction, and beauty. That night, you soak your feet in warm mint water. You dry them with a cloth worn thin by time, and for the first time in days, maybe weeks, you feel fully, undeniably human. You wake with a strange kind of clarity, like something's shifted in the rhythm of the city, or maybe just inside your ribs. The usual morning noises are there. A cart creaking down the street, a neighbor arguing with his rooster, the splash of water tossed from an upstairs window without warning. But the sounds feel softer. You stretch. Your joints pop like ancient hinges. You run your hand over your face, rough with stubble, and you think, today's the day. You're going back to the beginning, not to the fancy oils, or the Sabura soaps, or the new cleanser beads someone's importing from the East. You're going back to the raw, practical, no-frills core of Roman hygiene. You want to remember why you started, so you skip the perfume stalls. You ignore the newfangled linen wipes, being advertised as gentler than a sponge stick. You don't even stop for figs. You just head straight for the thermi, and not the new one. You choose the old bathhouse by the grain market, the one with the cracked walls and the chipped mosaics of Neptune scrubbing his armpits. You strip, stash your tunic in a familiar niche. No guards, no attendants, no sandals to be stolen. They've already been stolen so many times, you just carry a backup pair now. Inside the tepidarium, the benches are worn smooth from centuries of elbows. You sit, let the warmth rise around you like old stories. You close your eyes, you breathe. It doesn't smell like rose petals. It smells like stone, skin, and steam. Perfect. You move into the caldarium, holding your small flask of oil and your trusted, slightly bent strigil. You apply the oil slowly, with care, not for show, just for yourself. You scrape, and it feels like remembering, not just how to be clean, how to be present. Every pass of the strigil lifts a bit more than sweat. You think of the years behind you, of sponge sticks and soldiers, of goat balms and borrowed wigs, of that one time you cleaned a senator's feet and accidentally exfoliated too hard. The scrape makes a sound, sharp, rhythmic. You rinse, you plunge. The cold hits you like a promise. When you return to the warm room, someone sits beside you. You don't speak. You both just exist. Quiet, clean, human. Historians love to argue what made Rome great. Its laws? Its architecture? Its armies? Maybe. But maybe, just maybe, it was this. The shared experience of scraping oil and dirt off your back while a stranger did the same 3 feet away. You towel off with a cloth that smells faintly of time and age. You walk home barefoot, feeling the texture of the stones beneath your feet. The city is bustling again. The perfume stalls are shouting, The fig seller winks. You nod, but you're moving through it differently now. Not distracted, not flustered, just clear. That evening, you light your lamp and sit in silence. You place your strigil on the table beside you, not like a tool, but like a friend. You think about everything you've washed away over the years, and everything that still clings to you just a little, and then you smile, because tomorrow you'll scrub again, not to chase perfection, not to impress anyone, but to begin again, because in Rome, clean is a choice you keep making. You wake to sunlight slanting through the wooden shutters, casting golden bars across the floor. The city outside stirs gently, wagon wheels creaking, vendors calling out the first fruits of the day, a dog barking as if it has something important to contribute. You sit up slowly. Today feels final, not like an ending exactly, but like a full circle closing. You've scrubbed every surface of your skin, poured oils across your back like a small-time emperor, endured sponge sticks, and survived vinegar foot baths. You've shared bathing pools with senators and servants. You've lit incense for the gods and learned how to wash your tunic with crushed beans and prayer. And now, you want just one more rinse before sunset, one last ritual. You slip into your tunic, simple, soft, worn from time and cleaning. You pick up your strigil, now perfectly molded to the shape of your palm, its edges dulled from years of faithful scraping. As you step out, the streets smell of bread, citrus peel, and dust. The air is warm, the sky brushed with pale blue streaks. Rome is alive, sprawling, beautiful in its cracked, chaotic, and crumbling way. You pass familiar landmarks, the bakery with the burnt crusts, the alley where someone once tried to sell you donkey milk as cologne, the shrine to a local god you still don't know by name, but always nod to. The bathhouse greets you like an old friend. You don't rush. In the apoditerium, you remove your tunic and fold it carefully. You set your sandals aside, not because you think anyone will steal them, but because you know someone probably will. It's tradition. Inside the tepidarium, the air is calm. Only a few others here today. You soak in the warmth and silence. Then the caldarium. You oil your skin with practiced hands. Not too much, not too little, just enough to remind your body that it still matters. You scrape slowly, every stroke a goodbye, every drop of oil a memory. You close your eyes and remember your first bath, the awkwardness, the surprise, the strange intimacy of it all. You remember the city smells, the laughter, the long conversations whispered in steam. You remember the pain of loss, the joy of laughter, the day you cleaned a child's face with mint water and watched them smile for the first time in days. The strigil glides over your shoulder. You rinse and rinse again. You step into the frigidarium and let the cold water seal it all in. Not just the heat, but the years. You dress quietly, slipping into your tunic, like slipping back into your life. On your way home, you take a different path, past the market, through a shady grove behind the temple, to a small fountain you've never noticed before. It's old, carved with vines and sea creatures. You kneel, cup your hands. The water is cold and clear. You wash your face one last time, and This time, it's not about removing dirt. It's not about scent or oil or what anyone else sees. It's about you. You lean back, the breeze brushes your cheek. You're not perfect. You're not flawless. But you are clean. And that's enough. The sky turns gold. Not the kind of gold that screams, the kind that whispers. You walk the quiet streets of Rome, sandals soft against the stone, tunic light against your shoulders. Somewhere in the distance, someone's singing. Somewhere else, a baby cries, then falls silent. Everything slows. You pass under the arch of an aqueduct, tracing your fingers along its cool surface. The same stone that carried water for emperors now carries it for you. It's humbling, beautiful, simple. You stop near the window of your insula and look up at the evening sky. Clouds painted in lavender, streaked with fading sun, and in that quiet, you remember what it means to care for yourself. Not with excess, not with noise, but with ritual, with water, with intention. You light a small oil lamp, its flame dances like a heartbeat, steady and warm. You settle into your space. A breeze enters the room, lifting the edge of your blanket, brushing your skin like the hand of something ancient and kind. Your muscles relax. Your breathing slows. You close your eyes, and as the city drifts deeper into night, you know this truth. No matter how loud the world becomes, no matter how broken or glorious or strange, you will always have this: water, warmth, clean skin, and a quiet moment to return to yourself.